So what I would like to offer, based on a number of recommendations, based on the recent important academic work by Dr. Juan Rodriguez Turel and Dr. Fernando Casal Bertoa, which we are quoting in our statement, based on our observation mission, compliance reports from Greco, in our brief intervention we'll focus on three issues. Three issues which have been already discussed in the previous session: transparency, political participation, and enforcement, implementation. Starting with the issue of transparency, the issue of political foundations and the issues and entities related to political foundations, this issue has been recognized as one of the current problems. According to the current legislation, party foundations associations can receive unlimited donations from legal entities. However, only those formally connected to political parties and thus eligible for public funds are reporting to the Court of Audits on their contributions. This, like Barbara mentioned, has been mentioned in our recommendation report of 2015. We have a whole section dealing with this issue in our guidelines on political party regulations. Just to share with you some good practice from other countries. This is the issue of what we're calling a third parties. So entities which are operating outside political parties. This was the major problem in UK, and UK adopted a very strong legislation in 2000, Political Parties and Referendum Act of 2000. And in the United Kingdom, the Electoral Commission requires that so-called not-party campaigners, individuals and organizations, including foundations, need to register with the Commission, and they need to report on their financial activities to the Election Commission. Similar reporting requirements are in place in Ireland, Canada, Slovak Republic, just to name a few. I think it is important for us to recognize, and this is exactly what the Committee of Ministers recommendation 2003 and 4 talks about, is that this whole principle of transparency. We need to apply the same standards of transparency to political parties and to all the entities connected with political parties. If we don't have the same level of transparency, this is going to be an obvious loophole which will be abused by some entities. So our recommendation would be to create a system where those third parties, political foundations, associations, are not used as a parallel avenue for funding to go around the restrictions on transparency. When it comes to the issue of transparency, other aspect which we would like to bring to your attention is the issue of reporting and disclosure of party accounts and returns, both at the national and local level. As I mentioned earlier, Spain has made relevant improvements when it comes to disclosure of party accounts, and some improvements were made to facilitate the oversight of the Court of Audit. Nevertheless, we believe that more support needs to be given to political party branches, especially at the local level, to allow them for a timely and quality financial reporting. One of the issues where we think the committee could offer some recommendations that could focus its attention on is the issue of performance of the Court of Audit, and especially when it comes to Court of Audit difficulties in supervising the financial aspects of political parties, local branches. This is an issue which has been described in details in our paper. Effective implementation of legislation. Both ODHIR and Greco have stressed how the Court of Audit should be accompanied by effective, proportionate, and dissuasive sanctions for the political finance rules. Colleagues mentioned earlier the issue of criminal sanctions. We have a whole part in our guidelines dealing with effective sanctions. And my personal opinion is that in most cases, we need to have a mechanism for effective administrative sanctions. From my experience working in more than 40 countries, in 80% of cases, we are dealing with mistakes, poor compliance because of poor quality of financial officers. Those are not criminal cases. Political parties are not organized crime groups. They are just normal associations of people, and human mistakes do happen. And we have to acknowledge the fact that most of those mistakes are a result from lack of understanding of what the regulations are, poor compliance, low qualification of financial officers, and your regulator needs to be proactive in helping political parties to actually achieve high level of compliance. This is why we should not be only looking at criminal sanctions. We need to have a mechanism which encourages compliance, which has a good level of administrative sanctions. Parties should be given a chance to correct their financial reports if there are mistakes. But certainly, we cannot have a situation that public opinion, media, anti-corruption NGOs are waiting 2-3 years for financial reports to be published. A good practice would be to publish financial reports within 1 year. So there needs to be a balance. The Code of Audit should have enough resources, staff, and should have enough political will, if I can put it like this, to really secure timely compliance. This is an issue which I would like to go back to in my later remarks, but please allow me now to pass the floor to my colleague, Jacopo Leone, who will mention third very important aspect, which was also covered in the previous interventions.
Thank you very much, Marcin. Good morning also from my side, and thank you very much for hosting us.